Let me begin with Dr. Anand Ranganathan. Dr. Ranganathan, what do you make of this entire debate? I think you're on mute, Dr. Ranganathan. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good evening, Rahul. No, I'm of the belief that religious dress codes, symbols, or identities should have no place in schools or as part of school uniforms. That they do, and that too in a secular country, is itself hypocritical and problematic. There are two issues here, Rahul, and both are very important. Number one, there should be one rule and no duplicity in implementing or following it. And when I say religious dress code, symbols, and identities, it is evident that I mean all religions, no exception. Now, whether you think it is misogynistic or not, whether you like it or not, Islam is very clear on how a woman should dress. Quote, and tell the believing women to reduce their vision and guard their private parts and to wrap their head covers over their chests and not expose their adornment except to their husbands, fathers, or males having no physical desire. 24:31. Quote, O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to bring down over themselves part of their outer garments that is more suitable that they will be known and not be abused. 33:59 and 7:26. And because these are the commandments of Allah, by definition, a true Muslim has to follow them. So every true Muslim woman who must believe in each and every edict of Allah by definition has to adhere to this dress code of a burqa or a hijab or a chador. And it is fine for a school to not allow this. It really is, because it has a specific rule for a uniform. But it cannot at the same time allow dress codes, identities, or symbols of other religions. So you can't allow a tilak, a kada, a kanga, a cross, a turban, and ban burqa, howsoever regressive or a symbol of subjugation or oppression of a woman you might think it is. It is ordained by God, and therefore its unworthiness are subjective. It is another matter that Indian feminists are frauds and are scared of pointing out misogyny in Islam, and so they say a ghungat is oppressive, but a burqa is not. Point number two. There is a legitimate concern of security because a burqa and a chador covers the face. So in this context, a hijab and full body covering as prescribed in the Quran should be allowed, but not a face covering. Now let me come to the other issue. Rahul, just 30 seconds, very important. By allowing religious dress codes, symbols, identities into educational institutions, we are on the road, sadly, to normalizing unjust, draconian, misogynistic, sexist, supremacist orders and commandments, essentially allowing religion to rule over us and our choices. Where would this end? I ask a simple question to you and fellow panelists, Rahul. Question is this: what if tomorrow some religion or its god orders women to be shackled in ball and chain at all times? Would you demand that the principal step aside and allow the girls to rattle and drag themselves in?
You know, Doctor, there have been instances when, and we've seen it in the recent past, where certain groups have come out and said that we should allow Johar. There have been instances, if you remember, after the movie Padmavati was released or some such, I'm not very conversant with my Bollywood, but I remember this came up. And then, of course, there's been talk perennially about imposing the ghungat in certain cups in different parts of the country. At that time, of course, as you rightly said, lots of rights activists disregarded customs, etc., and said this is reprehensible. Today, I find that, no, I'm just saying, I'm sorry, I'm taking the liberty, Dr. Ranganathan. What if tomorrow a whole group of girls from, or female students from the Hindu community was to say, allow us with ghungats into the class? Yeah. What would we do?
Rahul, I'm very clear that by allowing religious dress codes, symbols, identities into educational institutions, we are on the road to normalizing unjust, draconian, misogynistic, sexist, supremacist orders and commandments, essentially allowing religion to rule over us and our choices. And even last time also, Rahul, if you remember, I asked a very simple question that wasn't answered by anyone. And I ask it again because that is the crux. What if tomorrow some religion or its god orders women to be shackled in ball and chain at all times? Would you demand that the principal step aside to allow the girls to rattle and drag themselves in? I think this is the principal question. We cannot be held to ransom to a religious diktat. As simple as that.
Okay. Let me open this up. Nazia Elahi, where do you stand on this question? This sort of question of what should be and what shouldn't be, what should be permitted? Is it violating tenets? The BJP will say, look, in the UPA's India, Kashmir was kept segregated from the rest of the country. We scrapped Article 370 and integrated Kashmir with the mainland. There were Pakistani Hindus that were never kept in the mainstream, never welcomed into the mainstream, but we changed that. That there were the corrupt who had access to the state's resources and they were the exploited who lost them. That there was a creamy layer and there was an ati pichra, there was an ooch and a niche, as summed up by one extremely abrasive remark by Mani Shankar Iyer, and that there were loans to the rich and there were people knocking on the doors for recovery of the poor. That's what they'll say. That's what they've said, and that's what they say. Do you believe that that is an accurate enough categorization?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. I've been waiting very patiently and hearing. I hope I won't be interrupted. No, I think that was a masterclass by the Prime Minister. And I think he answered all the questions that have been posed. It's almost like an open book exam because Rahul poses these questions and the Prime Minister has a couple of days to get back. And if he was, part of an interview and the interviewees would have said, salary kitni loge discuss kar le. So full marks to him. But there are two issues here and they're very important. Number one, Rahul, it is beyond doubt that India has progressed. Beyond doubt. If you look at, all the propaganda of, and of course, some of my esteemed fellow panelists would balk at saying this, that how dare I use this word propaganda. But the fact is, you look at all the foreign publications, you look at the opposition, even if you don't want to call it propaganda, you call it their allegations. And you look at the latest economic survey that has been prepared by Sanjeev Sanyal, you only have to look at a dozen graphic charts. You will, your eyes will open. Those who are not propagandists, their eyes will open. India has progressed on every field. In fact, my good friend Sanjay Jha I want to tell him, Rahul, through you, that he was the one who actually started this, saying that in 2017, we've had a 45-year high unemployment rate. Well, let me quote to you the International Labour Organization estimate for India. Unemployment rate in percentage, 2014, 5.60, 2015, 5.56, 16, 5.51, 17, 5.41, 18, 5.33, 2019, 5.27. So, so much propaganda has gone under the bridge. No one is doubting that India has progressed. The point I want to make right now, and this is important, is that India has not been allowed to leapfrog. Because yes, Modi may accuse of opposition to be divisive. Modi may accuse that opposition is destructive. But at the end, who has suffered? The Indians have suffered because, let me take one example. Why to talk about other examples? The farm laws. The farm laws would have made India leapfrog at least a generation ahead in terms of development, economic, agricultural, in terms of GDP, everything. Because remember, 44% of our active labor force is in the field of agriculture. 83% of Indian households are dependent on agriculture. What happened? The Congress said Modi will be forced to take back these black laws, which incidentally were in the Congress manifesto. And what was the result? If Modi had, ignored the opposition saying, you guys don't matter, India will progress. But at the end, they mattered, na? Modi had to take back the farm laws, which were important for India. So let us not forget, India is developing, but when it comes to leapfrogging, I'm afraid Modi is still stuck. He's still afraid and listening to the opposition.
Well, look, one second. Sanjeev Verma, let me get everybody into this and I'll come back to you. Let everyone have their varying shades of opinion on the show. Sanjeev Srivastava, a simple question to you. There are two Indias, said Mr. Modi, the India that has voted the BJP into power directly or in alliance in 17 states and 3 union territories, if my trivia is right. And the India that has reduced the Congress to playing a second fiddle in at least 2 states and hanging on to dear life in 3.